I have come here today to pay my respect to the victims of the airplane crash and to tell you the story of Air Canada Flight 621 and the tragic event that led to the death of 109 souls. So I am in Degry Drive in Brampton, Ontario. Brampton is a city in the Greater Toronto area and is about 44 kilometres. It's about 27.5 miles from downtown Toronto. This is the location of a memorial park for the victims of an airplane crash that happened in 1970. In 1970, of course, this area looked a lot different. It was all farming land. The houses you see come much later. On Sunday the 5th of July 1970 at 7:17 AM local time, Air Canada Flight 621 took off from Montreal heading towards Toronto Pearson Airport. The plane was a McDonnell Douglas DC-860 series, a very new plane delivered to Air Canada 3 months prior. They were to have a brief stopover in Toronto before flying on to Los Angeles. On board were 100 passengers and 9 crew. The 3 crew in the cockpit were the captain, Peter Hamilton, with 20,000 flying hours, first officer, Donald Rowland, who had about 9,000 flight hours, flight engineer and second officer, H. Gordon Hill, with about 1,200 flying hours. Air Canada Flight 621 was a routine, uneventful flight until they were preparing to land in Toronto. The first officer, attempting to arm the ground spoilers to deploy after landing, accidentally deployed them in flight instead, and this caused the plane to lose lift and hit the tarmac hard, causing damage to a fuel tank. I'll tell you a little bit about spoilers. I'm not a subject matter expert. In fact, all I know is what I've read, so I will do my best. Spoilers are panels mounted on the upper surface of the wing. When extended, both increase drag and decrease lift by disrupting the airflow over the wing. When the airplane lands on the runway, the pilot usually brings up the spoilers to kill the lift, keeping the plane on the ground. On the DC-8, the spoilers were only used for roll assistance in flight and braking assistance on the ground. At Air Canada, the standard procedure was to arm the spoilers during the before landing checklist at a height of at least 1,000 feet above the ground. Hamilton and Rowland had flown together previously and had discussions about when to arm the spoilers. Also, from what I've read online, neither of them liked arming the spoilers as per the checklist specification. The captain preferred to not arm them at all until on the ground, but the co-pilot preferred to do it during the landing flare. What is known is at some point prior to the flight, the captain and co-pilot had reached some sort of agreement regarding spoiler deployment to be used when flying together. So as said, apparently when Hamilton was flying, he asked that Rowland deploy the spoilers manually after touchdown. But when Rowland was flying, Hamilton agreed that he would arm the spoilers on the flare. On the flare is when the pilot pitches the nose of the aircraft upwards just before landing, done to reduce the aircraft descent rate. You can see a part of the voice recording transcript on the screen now regarding the spoilers. The plane was cleared for approach. The before landing checklist was completed. Hamilton began to reduce power and pulling up to the flare for the touchdown. The pilot called out OK, which was the signal to arm spoilers. The co-pilot, instead of lifting the lever to arm them, he extended them, all of the spoilers deployed, causing the plane to lurch downwards. The captain increased the power on the plane to attempt to pull it up from the rapid descent. Unfortunately, the plane hit the runway. Engine 4 came away from the body of the plane and fuel began to leak out. The plane became airborne again almost immediately. Not realising the plane was badly damaged, the captain was to attempt a go-round. It soon became apparent that number 4 engine was gone. Number 3 engine jammed and there was a massive loss of fuel. The wing was on fire. There was an explosion which caused the loss of the outer skin on that wing. Another explosion caused the loss of number 3 engine, sending the engine to the ground along with the whole wing shortly after. Seconds later, Air Canada 621 plunged nose down into a farmer's field. This field. There were no survivors. The area still remained farmer's field for almost 30 years after the crash. When the site later came into the possession of developers, plans were laid to preserve the location as a memorial. Human remains were still being found all those years later. So as well as the memorial, this site is also now a cemetery. A cemetery for only those victims on that plane. And this is the memorial laid down for the victims, all 109 souls that were on that plane. You can see this clearing here is roughly the area where the plane came down. So these squares, the lighter grey squares, represent groups of passengers. So like a single one was a person, travelling by themselves. Group of 3, could have been parents and a child, or three people, and so on. So each one of the squares represents one person who was on the plane. Beautiful memorial and cemetery, so peaceful, so quiet, very fitting. Rest in peace, all of the victims. You will always be remembered.